Hi there, friends. It is Monday, the 25th of January, 2021, and I thought I'd report to my friends what I've been up to, because I've been up to it. You know, when things get a little shaky or a little strange, you got to look into it and see what you can find out. And so I will relate to you, my friends, now exactly what I told the switchboard operator at the White House when I called and asked them what's going on here. All right. Saturday night between 1 and 3 a.m., Mustang Medic reported that there was a bunch of activity around the White House, soldiers entering and exiting. Okay, and after that, there was some evidence of fireworks. I don't know. All right. And so I've been following this Mustang Medic, and he's been walking around the Capitol, D.C., and I lived there. You know, I lived around the Capitol for 25 years from 1976 to 2001. So I know the area pretty well. And so it's fascinating to me to be walking those streets again, except they're so bare. They're so bare. All right. And in the meantime, I've run into other people investigating to see what's going on. All right. After the White House went dark after that military stuff, okay. And then this morning on the Capitol Live webcam, one person reported that they had seen about half an hour before a bunch of soldiers running into the Capitol and running out of the Capitol. Okay, that's the report. Someone else called the White House, and the report was that the White House phones were down. And that was like 11 o'clock in the morning, White House time. Okay. Why does it always happen? Bye. Bye. It always happens. I'm either in the bathtub or I'm here doing a video. All right. Where was I? Okay. So the streets are empty except for the National Guard. And the White House appears to be deserted, and the Capitol is surrounded by this enormous enclosure, 8-foot fences with razor wire on the top. Now, you don't want to think that that's odd. I think that's odd. Okay, so what I did was I took the link to the video that showed all of the activity around the White House on the 22nd. I made copies of it. I sent it off to some news organizations that I knew would be interested in this phenomenon. And they all not only remained silent about what I sent them, but they're just being very, very silent, period. And so today I started looking around YouTube for any real-time activity of the administration, the current administration, okay? There should be a press corps, there should be announcements, there should be executive orders, there's business going on there, right? You think? Okay. And what I was finally able to track was that there was supposed to be a press meeting at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And so I got in the group waiting for it to happen. And at 1 o'clock, it finally logged in with the press secretary in the midst of a briefing about COVID, which looked to me like a podcast. I couldn't validate for you that what the press secretary was saying today was a timely, real life, news breaking podcast or broadcast. It could very well have been a podcast, which says nothing. All right, nothing. And so the response to all my inner inquiries has been nothing, 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 and nothing. And when I talked to the nice young man who was not at the White House, but he answered the White House phone, and I explained to him this process that I had gone through, because I do videos myself and I can't really do a video if I can't determine what's going on. He gave me a phone number to call at the Pentagon, and because he couldn't seem to help me to my satisfaction. So I called the phone number at the Pentagon and I got an answering machine. So there's nobody answering the phone at the Pentagon. The gentleman I talked to who was on the White House switchboard line was not at the White House. And there doesn't seem to be any business going on either at the Capitol or the White House. And so that's what I need to report to you, that something's up. And of course, you and I know that what was planned was that the military would exert authority, exert their power, and have something to do with this intermezzo in the daily life of the nation, right? We know that. We know that the Republic, United States for America, is either in the process or has been restored, which means that the 1871 Organic Constitution, which is based on corporate statutes, is no longer in force. Therefore, the entire basis of our government has just switched from this version of law to that version of law, which changes a lot of stuff. Changes a whole lot of stuff. All right. And what I also am very aware of is that this movement from corporate statutes and rule baiting back to constitutional common law governance has not been narrated in the public mind, in the public press, in public academia, anywhere. Unless you're pretty much a constitutional scholar, you don't know anything about it. I think that's kind of interesting, that nobody knows which laws have authority right now. Least of all, the legal profession. Least of all, the legal profession. You notice how quiet they are right now. They're not saying a word. Neither are civics teachers talking about the changes in civil law enforcement caused by the movement from corporate statutes back to constitutional law. Teachers ought to be teaching their students about this, don't you think? All right. Also, our whole concept of authority is now in question because the referendum plebiscite election November 3rd has had so many objections and protests to it. There are literally thousands of them. But the mainstream media isn't talking about that either. In fact, the protests against that election are not just domestic, okay? Because what we found was that Italy and Germany and Spain and Serbia and China are where the servers were that were handling the tallies that flipped the votes from one candidate to the other. So that part of it was international. The 5 million counterfeit ballots sent in without their official watermark, came from China. Okay. And the money for poll workers, bribes in order to get them to violate their own state's election laws, also came from overseas. So our problem with governance is an international problem, and it should be covered by the Department of Defense, because the Department of Defense, that's their jurisdiction, is international influence over domestic elections. So DOD is on the carpet for what are they going to do? Now, the Supreme Court has already rolled over and played dead and refused to even hear any evidence of election rigging. They just did nothing, absolutely nothing. So I guess it's honest to say that we are in a governing crisis, not unlike that going on in Europe right now. In Holland somehow strikes me, but there's a bunch of countries that have overturned their governments because the people don't like what the governments are doing. And Brexit is another example of that. And I think the issue is, where does authority come from? Does authority come from rich people and rich bankers and rich corporations who have the deep pockets that can just rewrite any laws they wish and inflict and impose and impinge on the people who do the work? Or do the people who do the work matter? I think the people who do the work matter. I worked 45 years. Okay, I did it. And I think anybody who's industrious and productive and honest and decent needs a fair shake. And if the gazillionaires and the billionaires are just absorbing huge quantities of cash so they can dish it out and pay for whatever political outcome they happen to prefer, particularly the Illuminati political outcome, well, that doesn't seem real fair to me. And that's why I'm watching what's going on, because what's going on is a response to injustice and unfairness. And I think that everybody ought to be paying attention to the fact that when you ask a question, the response you get is no response, no response, no reply, no response, no reply, and no response. That's not the way I grew up, refusing to respond or answer to questions that were posed to me. What happens when you refuse to answer or respond to questions that are posed to you? You're seen as being rebellious or something. Well, what about a government that doesn't respond or answer or reply to questions that are posed to the members of the government? The courts that don't look at the evidence, the agencies that don't initiate investigations and indictments, as Department of Justice, Department of Defense, and the FBI have failed to do in so many cases. I'm just saying we need to be vigilant and pay attention to what's not happening. Sometimes you've got to see the hole in the donut, and not just the donut. You've got to see the hole. And now it's time to see the holes in the fabric of information that are making it impossible for us to make any plans whatsoever. So hit the subscribe button and the bell. And this is Emily Windsor Craig. And I hope I've raised some questions in your mind, because now's a good time for that. We'll see you. Okay.